Okay, so today I'm going to talk about importing 3D models from Blender into Unity and the two different methods that you can do it. The first way I'm going to do it is the more common way, and the second way is the way that I prefer to do it, and I'll explain why when I get to it. All right, so the first thing we need to do is go into Blender, and I've got a couple of segments for a racing track that I'm just mucking around with. And so the first thing I need to do is I need to save the file, and it's in the assets, and I've got a folder called blend files, so let's do that. And I also need to make sure, because I don't have it this way by default myself, so I need to make sure that the texture file is also saved there as well. All right, so when I go back to Unity, I can then, actually before I do drag that in, I want to show that we need to make sure we turn off the import cameras and the lights. Now, I also like to do generate colliders on these, so that when I drag these in, I'm not creating box files, box colliders for everything, etc., etc. I just use the mesh colliders. Because it's low poly, it's very, very low to begin with, so preference is up to you. But anyway, I'm going to drag this in here, and I'm going to make sure that I unpack the prefab, and I usually do unpack completely when I'm doing it this way. And I'm just going to take these three pieces, actually not those three, I'm going to take these three, no, yeah, these three. Okay. Let me just do it. This one, and that one. Not that one. Let me do it. Actually, no, I'll do all four. That's just easier. And I'll delete that. Now, I can now turn these into prefabs. Now, the one thing I forgot to do was that by default, as you can see, the shaders are all shared shaders. So what we need to do is make sure that we go to the blend file, select the materials, and make sure we hit the extract materials. I'm going to create a folder within that, lots of them, just to store them. The other thing you might want to do is also you might want to do the extract textures as well. But because I already saved the texture there, it's going to be there anyway. Alrighty, so now that I've done that, I'm just going to make sure that the material has now been selected back again. So we can now see that the materials are different, and I can now make sure that I can do this, whereas before I could not do this. It's convenient to be able not to have to do this step, but eventually you do have to do it. So that's the first method. Now, say for instance, if I wanted to make a change to, let's say, excuse me for 1 second. Let me say I want to make a change to this file, for instance, and I want to make the white become yellow. So I just select the, let's make it bright yellow, and then save that again. Yeah, don't worry about that because I've got the texture and everything in there. So we'll save that again. So when I make the change, you can see that it's now changed to yellow. It's very hard to see there, but it has changed. So the second method that I'm going to do, now the reason I do this second method is because, I'm just going to delete these. The source file becomes part of your project itself. So what that means is that if, for instance, I just do this, there goes your source file. So if you need to make changes to it, unless you've got Blender open and you want to save it back, you can potentially lose your work. So what I tend to do is in Blender itself, I will save it on the outside. So in the outside of the assets, I have a folder called graphics or something that denotes what I'm actually saving here. So in this case, it's all my graphics source files. And I will then save it into there. But when I come to actually saving these out, what I'll do is I'll make sure that, as you can see, I've got these pieces off to the side. So if I wanted to bring this piece into the game, what I would do is make sure that I bring the selection to the cursor so that it's in the center of the world. I would then do Control A and do on all transforms. So I'm applying all the transforms, the location, the scale, rotation, etc. I would then go to Export, FBX, and I'll make sure that I'm in the, I've got a models folder that I'm going to save them into. Now, before I do save it, I'm going to make sure that I've selected copy and that this is ticked. Selected objects is ticked, and the apply scaling is set to FBX unit, and the apply transform is selected. So that then saves that out. So I can now put that back over to, say, here somewhere. Oh, actually, I'll turn that snapping off. So I can put that there. I can do the same thing with this one. So Shift S, selection to cursor, and again, Control A, all transforms, and export. Oops. Export that out as an FBX. Now, I've done that wrong. That should have been turn.fbx. And this is going to be straight FBX. So when I go back to Unity, I can now see that I've got the straight and I've got the turn. Now, I'm going to do this exact same thing as because you do have to do this. So I'm going to extract the model, the material, create a materials folder, and save it there. And that's just inside my models directory. So it keeps it all nice and what do you call it? Nice and together sort of thing, so that I know that those materials are for my models. Anyway, I can now drag these into Unity, and I can now just move these around to wherever I want them, and I can just duplicate and just move them around. Now, the reason I do it this way is because when I didn't do it before, because I actually, let me just quickly save this back out as a FBX. So projects, graphics, no, I'm gonna go back to assets, blend files. And let me save that out. Go back to Unity. Now, the reason is because when I go into, and so let me unpack these again. And I'll just pull the turn out, for instance. You'll notice that the rotation is always at technically -90. Unity has a problem with floating points, or Blender has a problem. I don't care, but it does. Now, the reason this annoys me is because I have OCD. Everything needs to be 000 as far as I'm concerned. So when I go to look at these, for instance, and go to model, is that the right one? I can't see it for some reason. Normally when you click on, oh, there they are. Normally when you click on these, as you can see, the position and rotation are all set to 0. So that means that it's nice and clean, and that's my preferred way of doing it. It's up to you as to which way you prefer to do it, but I like to keep my source files separate from my projects, so that if anything does go wrong, you're working with people, someone accidentally deletes something thinking that it's not needed, yada yada yada, bingo, you just can't go wrong. The only thing is that when you are in Blender, you just need to make sure that you bring these in and do the apply on the transformations of the rotation, etc. And then do an export. So I can actually call this grass. Go back to Blender, Unity, and I can click grass. I can drag the grass in, and then I can just, as you can see, it's all zeros, and just scale that up. Just make that minus 0.01, and there you go. It's as simple as that. Well, we've come to the end of another video, and I do thank you for watching. If you did enjoy the video and would like to help support the channel grow, then please do subscribe. And to get notified of new content being added, make sure to press that bell.